the delayed effect of leadership coaching. Coaching is essentially a learning process aimed at transforming the coachee's responses and thinking to issues. Like many learning events, often the learning outcomes tend to get measured either during or shortly after the learning takes place. What rarely gets looked at are the longer-term effects of that learning, or in this case, coaching. Now, coaching research is a relatively new field, and there's a lot of space and unknowns to explore and understand about the effects and impacts of coaching. One of the more contentious areas to develop over the short period of time research into coaching has been developing is how to measure and understand coaching outcomes and effectiveness. As more and more organisations engage with coaching as a core part of their human resource management and learning and development strategies, understanding what impact coaching is actually having is becoming increasingly important, especially when resources and budgets are limited. Many organisations appear to assume that the outcomes of coaching are almost entirely immediate and visible, and that they base their decisions on the deployment of coaching on this, often unstated and untested assumption. There appears to be an idea that all of the results will be apparent by the end of the coaching program. Longer-term cascades. Research into other fields of learning show that there are both immediate and longer-term effects which, over time, can and do change the learner's thinking, attitudes and behaviours in a process where the initial learning is seen as more of a spark that ignites a longer-term cascade of change. This is especially the case in learning situations where people learn to think and perceive things differently. Given that coaching is primarily a reflective process that aims to change perceptions and thinking, it is not unreasonable to assume that there may be a similar longer-term learning impact in coaching scenarios. A new study. However, there is a distinct difference between making an assumption that this delayed learning effect occurs and showing this to be the case. New research by an international team of researchers from Sydney Business School in Australia and the School of Business at the University of Stellenbosch in South Africa has specifically looked at this issue in a longitudinal study following leaders' participation in 10-week leadership coaching programs. The participants in the programs were tracked over a period of 12 months following completion of the coaching program to see if the researchers could track changes that could be attributed to the program. Findings. As expected, the coaching program provided strong evidence of immediate learning and change, particularly in the areas of trying and refining different communication styles, slowing down and listening to others more, increased confidence and self-efficacy in their role as a leader, increased ability for reflection and interest in feedback, delayed effect. The study, however, found good evidence that the following areas of development took time to emerge: developing greater openness to trying new approaches and even instigating new changes themselves, a shift in developing an identity as a leader and confidence in that identity, embedding listening skills and taking on the identity as a listener rather than just having listening skills, a metacognitive shift into being a reflective practitioner over time. This also included a more mindful approach to almost every aspect of their work. Interestingly, the study also found that only about 20% of the participants, the coachees, were able to identify and articulate the learning and change observed after the coaching had finished. This means that the majority of coachees were not able to see the changes they'd gone through after the coaching had stopped. Therefore, self-assessment of long-term learning is very unreliable. The concept of punctuated equilibrium. The study also found that the development that occurs after coaching appears to occur through a series of cycles of punctuated equilibrium. What this means is that there are considerable periods of equilibrium where there is little change appears to be occurring, followed by more intense but shorter periods of rapid change, punctuations, often based around an incident a need or a realization. This idea mirrors findings in general evolution and Méziro's notion of transformational learning, where the old notion of gradual change isn't correct. Rather, in terms of both evolution and human learning, it has been found that change tends to follow punctuated equilibrium patterns. This means that not only is there not a gradual progressive change in people's development, but that the measurement of human change or learning outcomes will depend on where the individual is in the punctuated equilibrium cycle and how long their individual cycles are at the moment that they are observed or measured.